Hi, I'm Brian, and welcome to my podcast. If you're looking for something to listen to or someone to keep you company, you have come to the right place. Let's talk about anything and everything under the sun here on How to Be Brian. Hi there, listeners. This is your homeboy Brian, and welcome to How to Be Brian, the podcast. This is the reflections and musings of a young adult on the pursuit to educate and live purposefully. If you're new here, then please do not forget to subscribe. But if you're an old subscriber or follower, then welcome. We meet again. This episode is a continuation of the previous one. If you haven't listened to the first part yet, the link to that episode is on the description box. But if you have, then please keep on listening. And I think that public speaking is also something that everyone should develop. I mean, whatever work it is that you land in, you're always gonna have to present your thoughts and ideas. Maybe to your bosses, your supervisors, your constituents, the people that you work with, and so on. And I came up with 5 tips that you can observe or you can follow for you to become a better public speaker. So, the first one is familiarize yourself with the speech or the content. I think that this is the first thing that you should do when you are given a public speaking job. So, what you have to do is to familiarize yourself with the script. If they gave you a script for your speech, so familiarize yourself with that one. If you're allowed to have outlines or notes, make sure to be familiarized with the different bullet points or ideas that you have to present, and make sure that you get to transition smoothly from one thought or idea to another. Make sure that you can smoothly do those transitions. And then if you're asked to write your own speech, make sure that you identify the purpose of the speech. You also have to identify what message you will be conveying. If you are to speak in an event or in a gathering, make sure that you're familiar also with the theme, because most of the time events like that one, like seminars or webinars, trainings, events and gatherings, they have a theme. So make sure that you're familiar with the theme and that you can align your speech, the content of your speech, with the theme of the event or the social gathering. And then also try to ask who will be the audience in attendance. So it pays to be familiar with them. So try to know the age bracket, basically the demographic of your audience. If you'll be speaking to a younger audience, an audience consisting entirely of professionals, elders, businessmen, or women, and so on. So make sure that you know who your audiences are so that you can also adjust your speech to their level of vocabulary, and you can tweak your speech so that it will be appropriate and somehow entertaining for them. A lot of us really don't consider the entertainment value of the speech, that a speech should not just only be informative, it should also be a bit entertaining. And when I say entertaining, it's not funny automatically. Entertaining has to be amusing, appealing, emotive, and so on. And then try to internalize your speech and then embody the message that you're carrying, and think about how it should make an impact on your audience. And I know that it's such a pressuring thing to think of, that you have to make an impact on your audience, but you have to make your audience think. You have to make your speech get to them, because if your goal is to deliver a message or convey a message to your audience, you have to really find a way to achieve that goal, and you have to employ different techniques for that one, and you can do your research. So that's what's good about technology now, is that everything is just a click away or a research away. So that's my first tip. It's for you to familiarize yourself with the content of the speech, and then be familiar also with your audience. My next tip is for you to vary your tone, your speed, and intonation. And because I briefly touched on approach earlier, it is also important for you to have a manner of delivery that's appropriate to the message of your speech and your audience. So try to differentiate. or vary your tone, your speed, and the intonation of your delivery. Tone refers to how a person sounds when he or she speaks, and emotions are also reflected on the tone of the voice. So make sure that you are expressing and conveying the right emotions, because there are some speeches that require you to show a more lively tone. There are also some speeches or topics that require you to do a more formal tone or a more laid back tone. So make sure that you choose the correct tone or emotion that you will apply to your speech. Next one is speed. Speed refers to how slow or how fast a person speaks. And I've been getting some comments about this, that I speak so fast on the podcast and speak so quick. And probably it's because of the speed by which I watch videos at and listen to podcasts at. So I listen at usually 1.25 or 1.5 speed. So it has made me speak faster, but it's one of the things that I try to adjust from time to time. So there are times when a speech or a topic has to be delivered in slower pace, and then there are also topics or parts of the speech wherein you're required to speak faster. So try to adjust your pace from time to time and make sure that your audience can keep up with what you're saying. It's neither so fast nor so slow. And then intonation refers to the rise and fall in the pitch of one's voice. Make sure that you apply the appropriate intonation on each sentence. You can also put the stress on important words and statements. So if there is an important word or important idea, you can put more intonation to it or put more emphasis on it by maybe changing the rise and fall in the pitch of your voice. And then, since the audience cannot really read what your transcript says, so it would be important for you to put emphasis on the important parts, and your audience will pick up on it. If you're saying a really important part and you adjusted your intonation to it, they will adjust to it. So it is also a way for them to take mental notes. If you're emphasizing on certain ideas, it will be better because your audience can take notes and they can remember certain parts of your speech. So that's the second tip. It's to vary your tone, speed, and intonation. My third tip is for you to establish rapport with your audience. So again, we go back to audience, and the audience is a really important part of your speech delivery. So imagine that you're standing in front of, let's say, 100 people, and you're required to convey your message to them. And for you to do that one, and knowing that you're just one person compared to 100 audience, you need to get their attention. So maybe you can start your speech with something very interesting, let's say a fun fact or a rhetorical question or a set of statistics or a set of findings from a recent research that will trigger their curiosity, their interest in your speech. One way of establishing rapport with your audience also is having the right posture when you stand in front of an audience. Make sure that you look respectable and that you wear the right clothes. I think that it's one of the things that people don't talk about when it comes to public speaking, that your clothes, your posture, and your demeanor can really set the tone for the audience's attention. So make sure that you wear something appropriate for your speech and that you look presentable for them. So that's how you get their attention. And then, of course, your audience will definitely come from different backgrounds, gender and age groups, different professions also. So make sure that the language of your speech is inclusive. It's free of slurs or offensive words to any religion, race, or gender. Make sure that your speech is also unbiased. Nowadays it's easier. I don't want to say it's really easy, but it's easier nowadays to do fact checking and do your research and to verify your sources. It's easier to do that one now because of the internet. So make sure that when you identify your audience, make sure that your speech is free from any false piece of information. If you can, kindly verify all the pieces of information in your speech before delivering them to your audience, and make sure that you're using appropriate words. So that's how you make your content appropriate for your audience. And then physically, The rapport with your audience can be done or can be established through making an eye contact. If you're not comfortable looking at their eyes, I think what you can do is to look at their foreheads instead. One of my teachers in high school gave us that idea that if you're not comfortable making eye contact, look at their foreheads instead, or the area between their eyebrows. So that's one thing that you can do. And connecting with your audience or looking at them makes them feel included or makes them feel seen or incorporated in your speech. So make sure that you have eye contact with them. You can also use appropriate gestures, so you can move or go around the stage. I mean, not so much, of course, that it's distracting your audience. You can just stay still. If you think that staying still in the middle of the stage or in front of the podium is appropriate for your speech, then do that one. But if you want to really connect with your audience, you can move from one side of the stage to another and just try to explore the stage so that they will also see some kind of movement, and your gestures can also be expressed in your hands, in the way that you're holding the microphone. Those are just some things that contribute to the way your audience perceive you. So make sure that you watch out for those things. And then I briefly touched on demeanor earlier. Make sure that you look respectable to them, and then maintain welcoming facial expressions. This is one of the things that I constantly struggle with, because when I'm in front of an audience, I have this tendency to just be poker faced and have that resting face. I don't want to say it, but yeah, the RBF, I have that sometimes. So make sure that the moment you step up on stage, you have this welcoming facial expression, that it's a facial expression that is appropriate to your audience. So that's how you build rapport with your audience. And again, try to adjust your speech and your manner of delivery to your audience, because your audience will definitely come from different age groups, and it would pay off if you would do your research on what your audience needs to know from you or needs to learn from you. And in case they are people that you personally know or people that you know of, then it's easier for you to deliver your speech because you are already familiar with your audience. And then tip number four is for you to express your individuality. When it comes to expressing your individuality, my a tip or the best piece of advice that I can give you about individuality is that stick to how you do things or how you deliver your speech. It's nice to always know the different techniques of delivering a speech, and it's nice to observe all these great speakers, motivational speakers, guest speakers, presenters, hosts, and so on. It's nice to know their styles and have that incorporated in your speech, but also express your individuality in the sense that you should not copy other people's delivery, because your audience will have an authenticity meter. If you're being true to yourself, or if you're being true to what you're presenting to your audience, or if you're being natural with them, they will sense it. If you're just being fake to them, or you're trying to pretend to be someone else or to be someone that you're not, they will really sense it. So don't be afraid to express your individuality. If you're a person who likes research, then you can present, of course, facts, verified results of statistics and researches on your speech. If you're someone who has a good sense of humor, you can incorporate jokes and some punchlines in between your speech. So it will be an icebreaker also, and that your speech will have a comedic break. It will not really be too formal or too serious to your audience. And if you're someone who enjoys speaking in Filipino, pure Filipino, that's actually quite challenging. It's something that I cannot do. I can't really speak in Filipino for a long time. And that's something that I constantly struggle with. So if you want to deliver your speech in Filipino so that you will be better understood by your audience, do that one also. If you also want to speak in the vernacular language, like what we call Taglish, or combination of Filipino and English, it's also something that speakers do, especially the ones that are in the entertainment scene when it comes to making speeches. But the problem with code switching or speaking in Taglish or a combination of English and Filipino is that it kind of makes your speech disjointed sometimes. So try to focus on one language. But if you want to switch from one language to another, the tip that I can give you is to finish your sentence first in the language where you started it in. So if you started the sentence in Filipino, finish the sentence in Filipino before starting another sentence in English. And if you started your sentence in English, end it in English. And then if you want to add something in Filipino or explain in Filipino, finish the sentence first. So that's another tip that I can give you if you want to code switch or speak in both English and Filipino. So that's my tip number four. It's for you to express your individuality and be confident in who you are, because if you just express who you are, your audience will eventually appreciate it, and the right audience will find you. So the more you express your quirks, your weirdness, your personal touch to your speeches and your way of public speaking, the more you will attract the right audience. So there's that. And then my last tip is for you to practice and aim for improvement. So I know that it's a cliche that people say that you need to practice because practice makes perfect, but I would like to contradict that one, and I would like to present a different way of going about it. It's that practice makes it permanent. When you practice or when you do an actual dry run or when you do rehearsals, it makes the speech or the public speaking more natural because you get to practice and see how it goes. You get to practice the technicalities of holding the mic, of turning the pages from one page to another, if you have a manuscript for your speech, and so on. So, practice makes it permanent in a way that it becomes more and more natural and doable the more that you go about it. So if you are to deliver a speech, a presentation, or a message, whatever it is that you need to deliver in front of an audience, make sure that you practice or you attend rehearsals. And when you practice, do not do it like I did it before when I was in high school, wherein I just practiced the delivery in my head and that's it. So try to practice it actually. Practice the modulation of your voice. If you modulate your voice, practice walking up the stage, moving from one part of the stage to another, holding the microphone, looking at your audience, transitioning from looking at your audience to looking at your manuscript, or looking at the prompter, then looking to your audience, and then practice your hand gestures as well. There really is so much potential if you just practice and always aim for improvement. Aim to be better than who you were yesterday. And that has always been my goal with every online class, every seminar that I attend and I am participating in, every hosting stint or co-hosting job that I do. My goal is always to improve and to do my best as a speaker and presenter. And especially with the podcast now that I'm constantly recording and uploading, I always aim for improvement and I always try to watch for the little things that I can improve in, and the things that I could incorporate to my delivery. And just believe that the best really is yet to come for you as a speaker. You'll get better. And if you had that experience similar as me, wherein I had a speaking activity or engagement and I did not do well. So try to learn from those experiences. The more that you do public speaking, the more it becomes natural and the more that it becomes doable and bearable for you. And who knows, maybe you will enjoy it. Maybe after a few attempts or a few tries, you'll be a good presenter, you'll be really eloquent, and you can do it spontaneously without so much preparation, and it will just be a natural thing for you. So the more experiences that you get, the more polished that your public speaking skills will be. And that's something that you should aim for, because wherever you are, you will always be required to speak in public, whether it's just your best friend's birthday or your sibling's wedding. You will be asked by the host to deliver a message, and it would be nice for you to have a good way of delivery. I mean, though the examples that I give you technically are not really speeches or public speaking activities, but whenever you're in front of an audience, it's always nice to be prepared and get to know what you want to do and not think so much about it, because I know that Some people experience speech anxiety or speech apprehension, wherein if you're required to say something on the microphone or stand in front of a crowd and deliver a message, people get anxious or people get apprehensive, and those things can be addressed when you prepare for it. So those are my 5 tips for you to become a better public speaker. And in case you will be asked to deliver a speech, deliver an impromptu speech or an on the spot speech, one of the things that you can do to prepare for it is to constantly read. It's maybe my last life hack for this episode in becoming a better public speaker, because when you read and when you constantly get exposed to writings, it also trains your brain on how you can thread the words together and form sentences together, and then later on connect sentences to one another to form a paragraph or an idea or a discourse. So that's one thing that you can do to read constantly, because when you're speaking also, your goal is to make it a whole speech or to make it a consistent speech, one that can be considered as a whole. And reading is something that definitely contributes to our ability as speakers. So make sure that you read on the side as well. And that wraps up this episode of How to Be Brian, the podcast. I hope I was able to help you with your future public speaking activities. And if you guys need help in preparing for a speech or preparing for an engagement, a presentation, and so on, don't hesitate to ask for tips from me. And you can do that by messaging me or sliding into my DMs. Just message me on Instagram. It's at Bryan Llamado, or on Facebook if you're a Facebook friend. And I'll be glad to help you or give assistance to you in your future speech activities or speaking engagements. So that's it, and I'll see you again on the next one. That's it for this episode of How to Be Brian, the podcast. If you like to continue the conversation, please do not forget to subscribe and follow me on my social media accounts. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Paalam!